I got a call from HR asking why I'd suddenly become uncooperative and declined to share knowledge with the team. Turns out, someone had been forwarding my internal chats, selectively edited, to frame me as hostile. So I sent the unedited versions to compliance, and by Friday, they called an emergency offsite to investigate who. I got the HR invite on a Wednesday morning around 10:15. I remember because I was halfway through a report when it popped up, and for some reason, my stomach dropped even before I clicked on it. The subject line just said check in. I didn't think I had anything to be worried about. I'd been with the company for 4 years. My performance reviews had always been solid. I wasn't close with everyone on the team, but I had no enemies, at least I thought I didn't. The call was set for 11. It lasted 15 minutes. The HR rep, Melissa, started by asking how I was feeling at work, whether I'd noticed any shifts in the team's dynamic. I said no. Then she said there were concerns raised about my communication style and that people felt I had recently stopped collaborating, that I was refusing to share knowledge. I was completely blindsided. I asked her where this was coming from. She didn't say, just that it had come up through various informal feedback channels. I asked if there was an issue with a specific project. Again, nothing clear, just that this was more of a pattern and they were monitoring. I remember sitting at my desk after that call, feeling sick. I just kept thinking, did I miss something? Did I snap at someone without realizing? I spent the rest of the day rereading every recent email, Slack message, Jira comment. I couldn't find anything. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about how weird things had felt lately. For a while now, people had been cold toward me. At first, I thought it was in my head, but now I wasn't so sure. There were little things I hadn't connected. Evan, this guy I used to help almost weekly, had gone totally silent. He used to ping me constantly with small questions about processes, tool access, stuff he should have known by now. I always helped him. I never said no. But a few weeks ago, he stopped completely. One message ended with a sarcastic, guess I'll figure it out myself, and after that, nothing. Then there was Caitlin. We were never friends, but she used to ask for feedback on her documentation, especially when we worked on overlapping projects. That stopped too. She started copying my instructions into her own docs, but wouldn't credit or even mention it. Derek was even stranger. He started avoiding me altogether. Wouldn't tag me in threads. Once I answered a question he had posted in a public channel, and he replied like I had intruded. Cold. Formal. I didn't know what was happening. Then, about a week later, someone from another team, Priya, messaged me. We had worked closely together last year. She asked if everything was okay, said she saw a thread in a private channel and it felt off. I pressed a little, and she hesitated, but finally sent me a screenshot. It was one of my messages to Evan from a month ago, but it was edited, cropped, just a single sentence that read as short and rude. Something like, "That's not really my problem." I had never said that. I dug up the full message. What I had actually written was a long explanation of how to troubleshoot a permissions issue. I even added a joke at the end, something like, "If it still doesn't work, let me know and I'll ping IT myself." That part was gone in what Priya saw. That's when it hit me. Someone was taking my chats, editing them, and passing them off as evidence that I was difficult to work with. I didn't confront anyone. I just started saving everything. Slack lets you download your message history. I backed up every single DM and channel comment going back 6 months. I made copies of all my internal documentation, tracked access logs, and started paying attention to who was looking at my stuff. Evan had opened one of my internal SOPs 7 times in 3 days. Caitlin had copied an entire block of my onboarding doc into hers. Derek had edited a shared team wiki and removed my name from a section I had written. The final straw was when I found out that in a recent team thread, someone had posted examples of poor collaboration, and one of the messages matched something I had sent, but again, it was altered. At that point, I decided I wasn't going to HR. They had already made up their minds, or were at least hearing this stuff without checking, so I went directly to compliance. I filed a formal report with all the logs, side-by-side comparisons of original versus crop messages, screenshots, and metadata. I wrote it plainly, no emotion, just facts. I named Evan, Caitlin, and Derek. I didn't expect a fast response, but 3 days later, I got an email saying my report had been reviewed and escalated. Then Friday morning, I logged in and saw a meeting invite, team offsite culture reset and communication review mandatory. Everyone in my department got it. All-day session. Off campus. Mandatory. The chat exploded with questions. People were confused. A few joked that someone must have done something really bad. I didn't say a word. The offsite is next Monday, and I still haven't heard from Evan, Caitlin, or Derek. The weekend before the offsite was long. I didn't go out, didn't really eat much. I just kept replaying everything in my head. I wasn't scared anymore, I was angry. They tried to make me look unstable, lazy, even toxic. And for weeks, it worked. I was starting to doubt myself. Monday came. We met at this offsite training center the company used for retreats. Cold, clean space. No decorations. Just fake enthusiasm and silence. We all sat in rows, no one really talking. Everyone looked confused, except for a few people. Evan showed up late. Caitlin sat near the front with her laptop open, like it was just another Monday. Derek stayed in the back, eyes on his phone. Then the director of compliance walked in. Not someone you normally see unless there's a lawsuit or serious issue. He was followed by Melissa from HR and two people I didn't recognize, probably from legal. That's when I knew it was real. They started with a general slide deck about communication culture and psychological safety, all buzzwords. Then they said they had recently identified a pattern of manipulated communications and were conducting an internal review into potential breaches of conduct, misrepresentation of peers, and sabotage of internal collaboration. The air in the room changed. They didn't say names, but people were shifting in their seats. Whispers started. Then they broke us into small groups for discussion workshops. I got placed in a group with Caitlin. She wouldn't look at me. She didn't say a word the entire session. The facilitator asked us to share examples of when we felt excluded or misrepresented. Everyone else shared vague office gripes. I stayed quiet. I wasn't going to perform. After lunch, things got more intense. They handed out forms asking us if we'd seen or experienced selective message sharing, document misattribution, or manipulated context. It was worded so carefully, but it was obvious what they were looking for. By 3 p.m., they started pulling people out one by one. Private interviews. First Evan, then Caitlin, then Derek. Evan was gone for nearly 40 minutes. When he came back, he didn't return to his seat. He grabbed his backpack and left the building. Caitlin came back red-faced. She didn't say anything but started typing furiously on her laptop. Derek didn't come back at all. Then it was my turn. They took me into a small side room. The compliance lead thanked me for my submission. He said it had opened up something wider than expected. He asked me to confirm a few dates and walk through how I noticed the edits. I told them everything. I asked if they had verified the metadata. He said yes. It matched your claims exactly. He said it wasn't just my messages that had been edited, others were targeted too. But I had been the main focus. Apparently, Evan had been saving entire Slack threads, altering them in a third-party text editor, and pasting screenshots into private group chats with other team members. Caitlin had helped by validating the screenshots when others questioned them, even though she knew they were false. Derek, they said, had submitted concerns to HR citing the altered screenshots as evidence. So it wasn't just whispering. It was a coordinated thing. I asked why. He said they weren't allowed to give motive, but that it seemed to be about positioning, internal promotion politics. I had no idea I was even in the running for anything. They thanked me again and said I'd be contacted soon. When I walked out of the room, Caitlin was gone. Her laptop was still there, but her bag was missing. A staff member packed it up. By 5 p.m., the session ended. The director stood up and said the company was reaffirming its values and would take corrective steps. No one clapped. We left in silence. The next morning, I got an email. Subject line, investigation update, confidential. It wasn't over. And I still hadn't told anyone outside of work what was happening. Not even my partner. I didn't know how to explain that I'd been fighting for my own name, my own reputation, and no one saw it until now. The email from compliance said they were moving forward with formal outcomes, but didn't say what that meant. I figured it was the usual HR language. I expected them to quietly fire Evan and maybe reprimand Caitlin and Derek. What I didn't expect was the second part of the email. They wanted to schedule a follow-up with me, not just to thank me, but because they had found additional inconsistencies in recent project reporting. At first, I didn't understand, but when we got on the call, they showed me something I hadn't seen before, a performance summary supposedly written by my manager forwarded to senior leadership during the last quarterly cycle. It had complaints, negative ones, about me. Only problem? My manager hadn't written it. The file was created under Evan's credentials, then forwarded to an internal leadership alias with no CC. It looked like it came from our manager, but the metadata said otherwise. The document had been edited on a shared drive where Evan had contributor access for project backups. It wasn't just Slack messages, they forged performance documentation. Worse, this forged document had affected my eligibility for a lateral promotion 2 months back, a role that eventually went to Caitlin. I sat there listening to compliance lay it out piece by piece. My head was hot. My mouth was dry. It felt like something rotten had been sitting right under my skin, and now someone was finally cutting it out. Caitlin's name showed up again in email chains approving that forged feedback. Derek had endorsed the assessment in a leadership feedback channel. All three of them had coordinated to block me from moving forward. When I asked how long this had been going on, the investigators said the earliest manipulated file they found was from 8 months ago. 8 months of fake Slack screenshots, forged docs, and back-channel slander. I started connecting things. My manager, who had always been supportive, had gone cold a few months ago. Brief emails, short calls. I thought he was just busy, but now I saw it differently. He probably thought I had changed, turned bitter, pulled away. The manipulation hadn't just affected my work. It had affected how people saw me. The real twist came 2 days later. I got a call, not from compliance, not from HR, from my manager. He said, "I owe you an apology, a serious one." Turns out, he had started doubting me earlier in the year. He brought up his concerns to leadership based on what he was hearing, what he was shown. Screenshots, emails, carefully chosen messages, things I never said. He believed them. But after compliance sent him the real timeline, the real messages, and the real documents, he saw it. He said, "I didn't know what was being done to you. I thought you just didn't care anymore." That was the worst part. Not the lies, not the backstabbing, but the fact that for 8 months, people around me were slowly convinced I was someone else. And no one told me. My name was used in ways I didn't even know. And then came the final twist. The compliance team told me this wasn't the first time. A nearly identical complaint had been filed anonymously last year. Same patterns, same department, but nothing had come of it. The person who filed it had left. Quietly. They believed, now it was part of a longer pattern, that Evan, Caitlin, and Derek had been pulling this kind of manipulation for years. I wasn't their first target, but I was the first one who documented it. All of it. And now they were digging through old servers, archived chats, and previous complaints. They weren't just looking at my case anymore. They were opening a company-wide investigation. The internal investigation took 4 more weeks. I kept working quietly. My manager started checking in again, acting different, more careful, almost guilty. He offered to let me take time off, but I said no. I didn't want to disappear. I wanted to be seen. During those weeks, I noticed something strange. People in other departments started reaching out. A few said things like, "I'm really glad you're still here." One woman from finance told me she had seen my name on a list last quarter for a cross-department initiative, but was told I'd withdrawn. I never did. Bit by bit, I learned just how far the damage had spread. It wasn't just my team. They made sure I looked lazy, cold, arrogant, even when I wasn't in the room. Then, one Monday morning, a company-wide email came through. It was titled, Personnel Changes and Department Reorganization. No one said it out loud, but everyone read it twice. Evan, terminated effective immediately. Caitlin, placed on administrative leave pending legal review. Derek, resigned voluntarily following internal inquiry. Then, lower in the email, a short paragraph with my name. It said I had been cleared of all misconduct, that I had demonstrated integrity and professionalism under duress, and that I was formally promoted to a senior systems role effective immediately. That last part hit me harder than I expected. Not because I got the role, but because it was finally said out loud that I didn't imagine any of this. Later that day, Melissa from HR called and apologized. A real apology. She admitted they should have verified more before speaking to me that first time. They were revising internal protocols because of my case. 2 days later, compliance forwarded me a copy of an official record being added to Evan's file. It included proof of document tampering, digital forgery, and internal sabotage. They said the company was considering legal action. That Friday, I walked into the office for the first time since the offsite. People stared, not in a bad way, more like they didn't know what to say. Some nodded. A few looked embarrassed. I passed Evan's old desk, cleaned out, empty. Caitlin's desk still had her nameplate, but someone had covered it with a plain sticky note. Derek's laptop sat untouched, logged out. Later that week, I got a message on LinkedIn. It was from the woman who left the company the year before, the one who had filed the original anonymous complaint. She wrote, "I heard what you did. Thank you. I thought I was the only one." I stared at that message for a long time. Revenge didn't come with yelling or public shaming. It came with truth, with every message I saved, every log I pulled, every day I kept going when they wanted me to quit. I didn't scream. I didn't plot. I documented. And in the end, I got to watch every one of them fall apart under the weight of their own lies. They thought they were playing a game, but they didn't understand I was the one who wrote the rules. Quietly, patiently, and I never looked back.